are having with us the first session. For the first session, we are having Professor Sanjeev Ganguly sir from IIT Guwahati. Sir has more than 10 plus years of teaching and research experience. He has published many research papers and has got high citations. He has also authored book chapters named Multi-Objective Expansion Planning of Electrical Distribution Network Using Comprehensive Learning Particle Swarm Optimization in book series named Advances in Intelligent and Soft Computing Springer Verlag. His thrust areas are power distribution, system planning and optimization, distributed generation, custom power devices, evolutionary algorithm, multi-objective optimization. Sir has also been featured in the world's top 2% scientists listed by Stanford University, USA. We are extremely happy to have you as our eminent speaker for this session, sir, on optimization under uncertainty, a fuzzy-based approach.
Okay, so thank you very much for calling for this presentation.
Thank you.
And I wish all the participants happy time for this teacher training program. And I wish you good morning. Okay, so this presentation is all about optimization under uncertainty, a fuzzy based approach. Okay, so the outline of this presentation is first few slides I will discuss with different types of uncertainty modeling or different approaches we use for uncertainty modeling. Then I'll go through some basic concept of fuzzy set theory. Okay, fuzzy set theory is one of the approaches using which we can model the uncertainty. Okay, so this is one of the approaches. This is not only the approach, but it is one of the approaches among many other approaches. Okay, then I will go to the applications of this fuzzy set theory in solving a multi-objective optimization problem. Okay, I will give you a engineering problem as a case study, and I will give you some basic idea about this fuzzy based multi-objective optimization. Okay. Okay. Now there are many uncertainties in our real world. Many things are uncertain. We do not know that what would be the price of our petroleum oil tomorrow. Okay, so this is completely uncertain. We do not know what would be the price of any commodity that we are using, even edible oil or even vegetables, potato. We can predict based upon our experience, but we cannot certainly tell that, okay, so price of that commodity will be precisely that much. Okay, so when we can't say that, we could call them as uncertainty, call them having uncertainties. Okay, and there are many such uncertainties in our engineering problems. Okay, I will give you some example. Okay, so whenever we have this sort of uncertainty, we also have some approach, some modeling approach for this uncertainty. And these are two mostly used approaches. One is probabilistic approach, okay, or stochastic approach. Another is possibilistic approach or fuzzy based approach. Okay, I will not give you, I will not go in comparison of these two, because this is again hugely it will take a huge amount of time, and this would be probably out of the scope for this presentation. But I will basically focus an approach that is called fuzzy based approach for uncertainty modeling. Okay, so this I will discuss, and this fuzzy is one of the domain in artificial intelligence, AI. If you just divide this whole artificial intelligence domain into some building blocks, fuzzy is one of the biggest domains, similar to neural network. Okay, so here I will discuss this fuzzy based modeling approach for modeling the uncertainty and the application of this modeling approach in an engineering optimization problem. Okay. Now, before I go into detail of that, I will basically discuss this fuzzy set theory in detail. Okay, so that anyone who is not aware on this fuzzy set theory, who doesn't know anything about this fuzzy concept, can understand what is fuzzy set theory, how can we use it in solving problems, all these things. Okay. Now, when we can apply this fuzzy set theory, when we have some fuzziness in any of our day-to-day life. So if we have any sort of fuzziness, we can use this concept, fuzzy set theory. Okay. Now, what do you mean by fuzziness then? This fuzziness is characterized by these three important notation. One is called imprecision, another is called uncertainty, another is called ambiguity or vagueness. Okay. All right. Now, what is imprecision? Imprecision is when you cannot precisely tell anything. Okay. For example, any sort of measurement, if you measure the length, or if you measure the voltage or current of any circuit by using voltmeters or ammeters, so whatever readings you will get, that is not exactly precise, particularly if you use that the conventional ammeter or voltmeter, not digital. Okay, so why this is not precise? Because it depends upon your ability to accurately read the reading. It also depends upon the accuracy of the meter itself. Okay, so that's why whenever we'll read something, it is associated with some sort of error, some 1%, 2% error, plus minus 1% or 2% error. So when we call that this voltage is 100 volt, that means whatever 100 you just observed through this your conventional form of voltmeter and ammeter, it is actually can be plus minus 100 volt plus minus 2 volt. Okay, so if we cannot precisely read anything, if you cannot precisely tell what should be the value of certain quantity, then it is a kind of imprecision. Okay, so this is what the imprecision is. Okay, now uncertainty, you know that what is uncertainty? Uncertainty is something that we experience every day. Okay, so what would be the weather condition tomorrow is uncertain. Okay, whether there will be any rainfall or any thunderstorm tomorrow, it's also completely uncertain. Whether there will be a earthquake tomorrow, this is again uncertain. We cannot accurately tell that. Okay, whether there would be sunshine, sunny weather, or it will be a cloudy weather tomorrow, it is also uncertain. So similarly, there are many sort of uncertainties in our electrical power system as well. For example, you know that what should be the load demand in any particular area of our country. It is having some sort of uncertainty. We can predict it based upon our experience, but we cannot accurately tell that this would be that much. Okay, similarly, if you know that concept of photovoltaic system or renewable energy system like photovoltaic or wind, their generations are also intermittent, having some sort of uncertainty as well. Okay, so you cannot predict that their generation value accurately at any moment, but you can predict it based upon day ahead weather forecasting and so and so. So uncertainty is something which you cannot be accurately set. Okay. Now there are so many things which are ambiguous or having vagueness. For example, we often tell many things that the weather is comfortable today. This road is very nice. So this comfortable, nice, good, all are basically ambiguous or vague words. Okay, what is appearing to you good, some maybe appear to someone else bad. Okay, so if you have such, if we use this type of words throughout this our day many times, that this food is good, this road is good, this flower is very nice, the weather is today very comfortable, or the weather is very cool, or weather is very hot. When we use this very hot, very cool, comfortable, nice, good, bad, all these are based upon human perception. Okay, and therefore there is some sort of ambiguity or vagueness. So when we have this sort of statement in associated with any event, then that event is a kind of fuzzy event. When you have some sort of imprecision in any sort of event, then we'll say that this is a fuzzy event. Similarly, when we have some sort of uncertainty in any aspect, we will call there is fuzziness in this. Now whenever we have this fuzziness, we can model it by using a established fuzzy mathematics, okay, or fuzzy set theory. Now before we go to this fuzzy concept of fuzzy set theory, let us understand what is classical set and what is fuzzy set, and what is the difference between these two. Okay. Okay, so I hope that everybody knows this what is classical set. Classical set is nothing but a collection of a number of elements. Okay, all right. So classical set means is a collection of a number of elements. Okay, now in classical set, suppose I have a classical set of let's say 3 elements, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so then there this set, and I can call that set name is set A. So I can write that set A consists of 3 elements, 1, 2, and 3. Okay, now in classical set, whether an element will belong to the set or not, that is certain. There is no sort of imprecision in that. For example, as I gave you, in that set A, suppose it consists of 3 elements, 1, 2, and 3. I can say that element 1 definitely belongs to the set A. Elements 2 definitely belong to set A. Similarly, element 3 definitely belong to the set A. Okay, so any other elements, for example, element 4, 5, 6, 7, they do not definitely belong to the set A. Okay, now if I devise a metric, that metric will consist of the degree of belongingness of any particular element in a particular set. So for example, if an element X, whether this element X will belong to set A or not, that can be understood by this degree of belongingness of that set of that element X into that set A. Okay, now here this xi is that metric which is basically characterizing that element, whether this element X will belong to this set A or not, where this xi suffix A means that it is that degree of belongingness of this set of any element into this set A. Now whether X will belong to this set A or not, that I can certainly tell. If it belongs to the set A, then this value will be 1, otherwise 0. So here as the example I have given to you, suppose set A consists of these three elements 1, 2, 3. So zeta A1 will be equal to 1, zeta A2 will be equal to 2, and zeta A3 will be equal to 3, equal to 1. So zeta A1 or 2 or 3 will be equal to 1. So this means that the element 1, 2, and 3 belong to set A. Okay. Other than that, if I write x is equal to 4, then zeta Ax will be equal to 0, because 4 doesn't belong to that set A. Okay, so this is very, very simple to understand, and this is very much straightforward. There is no ambiguity and any sort of imposition into that. So any element who does not belong to a particular set will have zeta is equal to 0. That means its degree of belongingness would be equal to 0. Okay. Similarly, any element who belongs to the set A will basically have the degree of belongingness 1. Okay, so this is very simple. Okay, now this concept you can get from this following reference book, T.J. Ross book. That is basic concept of this classical set and fuzzy set. Okay, now so here if you look at this degree of belongingness of any element in any set, then you can get a kind of binary relationship. That means either any element will completely belong to a set or it does not belong at all, okay, to any set. Now in between this 1 and 0 there exists infinite number starting from 0.000001 to 0.999999. okay, now those are those will not appear in this degree of belongingness in a classical set theory. Okay, now where it basically where is that value, that means zeta for a classical set or degree of belongingness of this classical of any element in a classical set cannot be fractional, it can be either 0 or 1. okay, now in fuzzy set, this concept of it was proposed by Zadeh, okay, Latif Zadeh. So he said that in this fuzzy set, degree of belongingness, or we can call them degree of membership, can be 0, 1 or any value in between 0 and 1. okay, so that means any element in a fuzzy set can fully belong to that set or cannot belong this set at all, or can partially belong to that set. okay, whenever that degree of belongingness, or in fuzzy set theory we call it degree of membership, if it is in between 0 and 1, that means 0 stands for, you have seen in previous slide, zeta 0 stands for an element does not belong at all in that set. 1 stands for it belongs to the set. okay, so similarly if zeta is fractional in between 0 and 1, that will mean the partial belongingness. Now the concept of partial belongingness was absolutely not there in case of classical set theory. okay, but it is there in case of fuzzy set theory. That is what the fundamental difference between the fuzzy set and the classical set. So in fuzzy set theory, Zadeh said any element can partially belong to that particular set, and that set of course we will call that fuzzy set. So any set associated with fractional degree of belongingness of any element in between 0 to 1 will call as fuzzy set. okay, I can give you some pictorial difference between this classical set and fuzzy set. okay, suppose this left hand side, this figure, it is basically an example of a classical set, and right hand side figure, it is giving an example of fuzzy set. Okay. Now this oval, if you look at this oval, suppose is a representation of a classical set. Okay. Now whoever belongs to this classical set will either lie on the periphery of this oval or inside this oval. Okay. Now let us, this set is represented by set A. Okay. Now let us take 2 points. One is point A, another is point B. Now here you can understand that point A, it is within that oval, so it belongs to this set A. So its value of this degree of belongingness or zeta will be equal to 1. So zeta AA will be equal to 1. So because it is definitely belonging to the set A. Okay. But if you look at this point B, it does not belong at all. It is not within this set A. So the value of degree of belongingness of this point B, that is zeta AB. A means whether this point B belongs to this set A will be equal to 0. Okay, because point B does not belong to this set A at all. Okay, so here we have a Cripps boundary. We have a precise boundary. Okay, we have a precise boundary to differentiate any point, whether it is within that set A or outside the set A. Okay, but as you know, many times we do not have a precise boundary. Even if you look at the border of our country, in many areas we do not have a precise boundary that beyond which something is outside our country, and under this we will be having within this country. We do not have this precise boundary. Okay, so this, but in case of classical set theory, we need to have a precise boundary. Okay, whereas in fuzzy set theory, we do not have this precise boundary. We have rather some areas which will basically represent this partial belongingness within this country. So here, if you look at this right hand side of this figure, which is a representation of a fuzzy set, or rather a fuzzy boundary, then you can see there are two ovals. One is inner oval, another is outer side. Okay, now inside this oval, inner oval, whoever belongs to that will be having this degree of belongingness or degree of membership equal to 1. Okay, so here this fuzzy set is represented by A tilde. So A, either on the top of this A will write tilde, or on the bottom we write tilde. Okay, now this point A, since it completely belongs to this set A, so we can write this A, the degree of belongingness or degree of membership of this point A in that set A is equal to 1. Okay, now similarly point B, it is outside this outer oval, so it has a degree of belongingness equal to 0. So we can definitely say that this degree of belongingness of point B in that set A is equal to 0. Okay, now there exist some points, suppose at this point C, which is in between this inner oval and outer oval. Okay, it has some partial belongingness of this set A, so it will have zeta AC equal to in between any value of 0 to 1. So whoever will belong outside this inner oval, but inside this outer oval will have some sort of partial belongingness of that particular set. Okay, so we'll call them as partial belongingness or partial membership value. Okay, so they partially belong to that particular set. So many times we are unable to draw a precise boundary between any two aspects. So in those cases, we may apply the concept of this fuzzy boundary. Okay. All right. Now I will come to this fuzzy set. Okay. So in a fuzzy set, an element either belongs to the set or does not belong or partially belong. Okay. So the difference, as you can understand at this moment, that in classical set, any element either will fully belong or it does not belong. Okay. But there is no concept of partial belongingness. Okay. But here in fuzzy set, any element can partially also belong to that particular set, and whatever we call as zeta, that is degree of belongingness, that this zeta. So here in case of fuzzy set theory, we represent it, it's mu. Mu is basically representation of membership function, similar to the degree of belongingness. So membership means similar concept of degree of belongingness. So membership mu ax means the membership or degree of this degree of belongingness of this point x into that set A. Okay. Now, if you plot these membership values with respect to the continuous values of this x, then whatever graph we will be getting, that is called this membership function, representation of this membership function. Okay. So here you can see from this point, this left hand side ultimate point, up to this point, any value of x will have membership value 0 in this set A. Okay. Similarly, from this point onward to extreme right, whoever will belong to that set A, no element will belong to this set A. Okay. Now, from here to here, all these values of x will belong to this set A. Okay. And there exists a value of x where the degree of belongingness is or the membership is equal to 1, means it is definitely belong to the set A. Okay. So there exists only one point which is definitely belong to the set A, but apart from that, there exist many points who are partially belonging that particular set. Okay. So this is what the representation of membership function. Okay. So membership function means it gives you a concept that whether how many elements belong to a particular set. If x is continuous in a number, then if you plot it, then you will get a proper shape, and that shape will represent whoever element will belong to that set A, whoever will partially belong to the set A, and whoever does not belong to the set A at all. Okay. Now, this is what the representation of this fuzzy set in a fuzzy algebra. Okay. Here, this A tilt is representing that it is a fuzzy set A. Okay. And this fuzzy set can be discrete or continuous. Okay. Now, if it is discrete, then it will have certain discrete points x1, x2, and so on. Okay. So this representation is something different than the usual representation of our algebra. Here, this mu ax, this denominator and numerator, they are not basically representing similar to a fractional number. Rather, they are basically representing the any particular element and correspondingly its membership value. So here this is not representing mu a x1 by x1. That means this symbol is not representation the symbol of division. Okay. rather it is representation of that membership value or degree of belongingness of any element x1 into that set A. Okay. Similarly, this plus is not representing the addition of this element and that element. Rather, it is basically representation of aggregation. Okay, so this here, all this operator, whatever we use in usual arithmetic or algebra, we are not using it for the similar purpose. Okay, so here this plus is representation of aggregation. Similarly, x, this element represent that for this element x2, the degree of membership is mu a x2. Okay. Similarly, for all other elements, whoever will be there in this discrete fuzzy set A can be represented like this. Okay. Or alternatively, you can represent summation. You can use also summation symbol. But here again, this summation symbol is not representing the arithmetic summation. Rather, it is representation of aggregation. And this is not representing this any sort of fractional number, because this is not representation of your division symbol. Rather, it is representing any particular element and its corresponding membership or degree of belongingness. All right. Similarly, where x is basically universe which is continuous and infinite. Okay. Now, this whatever we discussed is a representation of discrete fuzzy set. Now, if the fuzzy set is of continuous, then this representation is something like this. Here, this integral sign, again, it is not representing the usual sense, that is, it is an integral of any function. Rather, it is basically representing a symbol of a continuous fuzzy set. So any sort of continuous fuzzy set is characterized by this integral symbol. Any sort of discrete fuzzy set can be characterized with this summation symbol or this plus symbol. Okay. Now it says that this continuous fuzzy set has an element x and its corresponding membership value. Okay. So since they are continuous, we need not to represent in differently, so rather we can represent in that fashion. Okay, but usual representation of a fuzzy set is in pictorial form would be more understandable. That is what I have shown to you. So this is usual representation of the membership function of a fuzzy set. Okay. Now, if we have two different fuzzy sets, I can perform this union, intersection, complement operation similar to the classical set. Okay, so suppose here this is our this triangle is representing this fuzzy set A, and that triangle is representing fuzzy set B. Okay, now if you use this union operation, then that means if you use the union operator of this fuzzy set A and B, then this membership value of A union B would be equal to this mu A x max mu B x. This symbol is representing the max operator. That means after performing this union operation, the composite fuzzy membership value would be the maximum value between these two. So this will basically represent this outside area of that fuzzy set A and B. Similarly, for intersection, we used mean operation. Okay, so that means in a composite fuzzy set, that is A and B, if you take the intersection between these two, then the membership function of this composite fuzzy set will be the mean of these two sets. That is represented by this small triangle. So outside of this will represent, so this union operation of these two sets will give the composite fuzzy membership value like this, like M. But here intersection operation will give the composite fuzzy membership like a small triangle. Okay. All right. Similarly, you can do the complement also. So if you have this fuzzy set A, which is having different values of this membership. So after taking complement, that means corresponding to each element, you simply subtract this, this membership value from 1, and whatever you will get, that will be the complement. So this dotted line will represent the complement of this fuzzy set A. Okay, so this is the complement of this fuzzy set. So this is represented, that is why this is represented by A tilde bar. So A tilde bar means it is complement of this fuzzy set A. Okay. All right, so we have different properties. You can see some of the properties will hold, in case of similar to the classical set in fuzzy set, and some of the properties will not hold. One of the properties that will not hold, that if you take union of any complement of any classical set with the classical set itself, then what you will get? You will get whole universe. Or if you take the intersection of this any particular classical set, and if you perform this intersection operation with the classical set itself, you will get a null set. Okay, but here you will not get the similar thing. If you take the intersection of this, that complement of this fuzzy set A and this fuzzy set itself, then whatever you will get, that by using this max operation, you will get this if you look at my arrow or not, I don't know. So this if you look at my arrow, so this will represent this kind of union of that its fuzzy set and its complement. Similarly, if you take the intersection, that will give you mean operation, so that will give you two triangles. Okay, so you can do by yourself. It is very simple. So here if you take union of any fuzzy set with its complement, it will not give you the universe itself, and if you intersect any fuzzy set with its complement, it will not give you a null matrix or null set. Okay, now there are some properties of this membership function. Membership function does not have a particular shape. It can be of any shape, although I have shown you a triangular form, but it can be triangular, it can be trapezoidal, it can be of any shape, it can be dumbbell shape or any shape. Okay, but generally in a common form we can represent in a trapezoid form, because triangular is also a form of the trapezoid. Triangular is a simplified form of a trapezoid. Okay, now in case of trapezoidal membership function, the sketch is something like this. Now here this section is called core. That means whoever elements having a membership equal to 1 is called core of that fuzzy set, trapezoidal fuzzy set. And from here to here, whoever is having whoever elements is having non-zero membership value, we'll call them as support. Okay, and if you just extract core from the support, then whatever areas are remaining, we call this as boundary. That means boundary are those boundary are for those elements which are having partial belongingness or partial membership value. Core is for those elements which is having definite belongingness or membership equal to 1, and this union of this boundary and core will constitute the support of the particular fuzzy set. So trapezoid is basically a usual form of representation of a membership, and it is widely used for any sort of uncertainty or imprecision modeling. Okay, now what is the difference between a trapezoid membership function and triangular membership function? Here we have white core, whereas in in case of triangular membership function, Here code is only of 1 point or 1 element. Okay, here code, but in case of trapezoid membership function, the code consists of multiple elements. Okay, so that is what the difference. So that's what I am telling, that that triangle is a special form of trapezoid. Okay. Now there are different types of fuzzy membership functions. Some of them I have shown over here. It is not an exhaustive list, but as I said, fuzzy membership function can be of different sets. So this is an example of normal fuzzy set. When we will call it normal, when at least we have one element whose membership value is equal to 1. Okay, but if we do not have any element, it is also possible that if we do not have any elements having membership value 1. So here you can see for this particular membership function, there is no element having membership value equal to 1. Okay, so then we call that set as subnormal fuzzy set. Okay, similarly we have also convex fuzzy set and non-convex fuzzy set. Convex and non-convex functions, probably same concept. If you use it here, you can find out. Okay, similarly we can also have interval valued membership function. What do you mean by interval valued? If you look at the shape of this membership function, then you can see for any particular element there exists two membership. One is this corresponding to this lower sketch, another is representation of this higher sketch. Okay, so here for a particular element, for example this Z, its membership value is within an interval between this alpha 1 to alpha 2. So mu a Z would be expressed by the interval alpha 1 to alpha 2. It means that sometimes we are not much sure about the membership value of any particular precise membership value of any particular element. That time you can keep the membership value of that element within an interval. Okay, so this is further advanced form of a fuzzy set representation. Sometimes we call it fuzzy two sets. Okay, all right. Now this is what I mentioned about briefly the several facts of fuzzy set. Now let us understand how can we model any sort of event by using this fuzzy set theory. Okay, now in order to do so, what we have to do, there are 3 steps. This is a 3-step process. This is a 3-step process. First, whenever you have such kind of imprecision, ambiguity or vagueness, you model it by using this fuzzy set. Okay, and this process is called fuzzification. So fuzzification means it is a process to represent the physical property using the fuzzy set. So it is representation, or it is the process of translating any sort of imprecision or any sort of ambiguity or any sort of uncertainty into a fuzzy set. Okay, so this process is called fuzzification. Okay, and for example, as I said, we do have imprecision in reading the voltage by using the conventional voltmeter, analog voltmeter. Okay, so there whatever value we are calling, that value may not be actual value or accurate value. So there exists some sort of imprecision. So this imprecision we can often model by considering ±1% error in measuring, error in measure accuracy, or error in measuring, or error in the accuracy of the meter. So this ±1% is written over here, and this is what the value we are reading. So you can translate this imprecision by using a triangular fuzzy set. So for example, if I say that this reading is nearly 100 volt, so this nearly is of course a vague word. So that means I also tell that I may have plus minus 1% inaccuracy in my reading. So I can represent this in by using a tangular fuzzy number, a tangular fuzzy set. Okay, where this the reading that I took will have, that is the most possible value, that is having this membership value equal to 1, but any other value within this plus minus 1% accuracy will have some partial belongingness. That means it may so happen that at this value this reading might be, so it has some partial belongingness or partial membership. Okay, all right. Now this is what is fuzzification. So as I said, to model any uncertain event or imprecision or any sort of vagueness by using fuzzy set theory, the first step is to represent that imprecision or uncertainty by using a fuzzy set theory. So that is called fuzzification. After fuzzifying, we do our analysis, then we arrive at some output or result, and that result will be the representation of a fuzzy set. So here that result need to be again translated into classical set by using the opposite process of fuzzification, and that is called defuzzification process. Okay, so that is called defuzzification process. So defuzzification is a process to defuzzify a fuzzy set into a classical set. Okay, so in fuzzification we represent this any sort of imprecision, uncertainty or vagueness into a fuzzy set theory. Then we do our normal calculation or analysis in fuzzy domain. Then again we defuzzify it in order to again return back to the classical set. This is similar type of any sort of transformation, like in Laplace transformation. What we do, we first convert time domain to Laplace domain or S domain, then we do our analysis, and then we finally convert to S domain to again time domain. So this is similar to that. Okay, so we convert this any sort of imprecision into fuzzy set, we do our analysis in fuzzy domain, and finally whatever we are getting, again we need to defuzzify it. So this defuzzification is a process to again going back to the classical value. Okay, or to interpret the result. So this defuzzification can be done by two methods. One is defuzzification to a classical set or Cripps set, that is called lambda cut or alpha cut method. In some books people use lambda cut, and some books people use alpha cut. Both are similar. Okay, and also we can there is another method of defuzzification, that is defuzzification to a scalar value. Okay, so I will come to that with an example so that you can understand. So first let us start with this defuzzification into a Cripps set or classical set by using lambda cut method. In lambda cut method, what we do, we convert a fuzzy set into a classical set. Okay, so this is the representation. This A lambda is basically representing the equivalent form of fuzzy set to a classical set corresponding to a particular value of lambda. Okay, where lambda can be of any value between 0 to 1. Okay, now when we will convert a fuzzy set into a classical set, so whoever element having membership value higher than this lambda will be there, that will be kept as this A lambda, that is lambda cut of this lambda cut classical set of this fuzzy set. Okay, so this means this right hand side means that within this A lambda, whoever element will belong, their membership value is greater than lambda. Okay, so lambda is a number between 0 to 1. Okay, so I give an example to further clarify this. Suppose this is my classical set. This is my classical set. Now what it actually representing? As I said, it is representing that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. That is A, B, C, D, E, and F. Okay, and this numerator represents their corresponding membership or degree of belongingness. Okay, so that means for this element A, its membership is 1. Okay, for this element 2, element B, membership is 0.9. For element C, membership is 0.6, and so on. Okay, for member F, for element F, its membership is 0. Okay, now this is what the representation of a discrete fuzzy set. Okay, as I explained before. So this is representation means in the denominator whatever you are getting, this is the element, and numerator it is its corresponding membership value. Okay, and this plus symbolized the aggregation, not the usual addition that we do in arithmetic or algebra. Okay, now when you will take this lambda cut of that particular set, what you will get? Suppose I take this lambda is equal to 1. So A1, it will be a, that classical set. So it will give those elements which is having membership value higher than this lambda, that is higher than this 1. So here we have only higher than and equal to, of course. So we have only one element, that is element A, whose membership value is 1. So A1 will consist of only this element A. Okay. Now if we change this lambda is equal to 0.9, that means this A.9 will basically will consist of those elements having membership value either membership value greater than or equal to 0.9. So here you can see we have only two elements, that is element A and element B, having membership values greater than 0.9. So we will be having these two elements, that is A and B. Any other elements will definitely not belong to this this lambda cut of this particular set corresponding to lambda value 0.9. Okay. Similarly, if you reduce lambda value to 0.6, then you will see A, B, C elements will come. Further, if you reduce this lambda value to 0.3, then 4 elements will come, and so on. So if you take lambda is equal to 0, then it will give a whole universe, that is X. Okay. Now one thing that you can interpret from here is that if you go for higher and higher lambda, you will be getting lower elements that will come into that lambda cut matrix. Okay, and if you have lower and lower value of lambda, so more elements will come. As at least this is true for this particular example. Okay, so this gives you some important interpretation that how much lambda you will be considering while defuzzifying any set to a classical set. So here you can see also that this fuzzy set is defuzzified into a classical set which represents some elements. So here this A1, that is corresponding to lambda is equal to 1, this set A only consists of the set element A. So no other elements will exist will belong to that particular set. So degree of belongingness for all other elements except this element A would be 0. Okay. So here you can choose the choice of lambda is another important factor. So whether you want to accommodate more elements, or you want to you want to restrict the accommodation of elements by controlling the value of lambda, by choosing the appropriate value of lambda. Okay, so this is another important factor. Now this is, as I said, this defuzzifying into a classical set, but you can also defuzzify of any fuzzy set into a single value or a scalar value. That is basically another approach for defuzzification. Okay, and there are many methods in this approaches. In this approach, one is called max membership, centroid, weighted average, max mean, and many others are there. So for using this defuzzification approach, whatever fuzzy set you are getting, you finally arrive at a singular element. Okay, so here by for example, by using max membership defuzzified method, you take those elements having maximum membership value. So here only we have one element having maximum membership value, that is Z star. So it will give one singular value. Okay. Now if we have a different other fuzzy sets, then this can be also a classical set, collection of those points having maximum membership. Similarly, by using the centroid method, centroid defuzzification method, let us find out the centroid of this particular fuzzy set, and that element corresponding to this centroid will give you the defuzzified scalar value of that particular fuzzy set. Okay. Similarly, weighted average method is there. By using this weighted average, you can find out the single scalar value by defuzzifying the whole fuzzy set. Okay. Now here we come to this fuzzy arithmetic and extension principle. That means how can we utilize the concept of fuzzy set similar to our algebraic operation or arithmetic operation, or first of all this addition, subtraction, multiplication, those operations, how can we do in case in a fuzzy set. Okay, so this is again this concept is called extension principle, and it is developed by Jade. Okay, it is developed by Jade. Now there might be many types of application of this extension principle. It may so happen, suppose we have a function y is equal to fx. Sometimes here you can, what do you mean by y is equal to fx? It is basically transformation of x from one domain to another domain to y under this mapping of f. Okay. Now it may so happen x itself is a fuzzy and mapping is Scripps, or x is Scripps or classical set, but the mapping is fuzzy. Okay, or it may so happen that both mapping is fuzzy and the element x is also fuzzy. So these are the three possibilities. In all possibilities, this extension principle can be applied to find out what would be the value of y. Okay. Now, in case of suppose we have a Crisp mapping of a fuzzy input variable, so that means we are basically converting this fuzzy set A to fuzzy set B under a Crisp mapping. That means classical mapping. Okay, so here there is no fuzziness in the mapping, but we have fuzziness in the element A, so that our whatever output we will be getting after Crisp mapping will be also fuzzy. So to do so, what we need to do, we will be using max operation. Okay, we will be using max operation. Okay, so this means that mu membership value of any element of this fuzzy set B will be equal to max operation of all this element of mu x under this mapping fx is equal to y. Okay, all right. Similarly, hello, some disturbance came. Anyway, now sometimes we will be having complexity in the extension principle increases if we have multiple variables. So here we have only one variable, that is x, or a means x, which is mapped to y, but it may so happen we will be having multiple element fxy. Okay, fxy, that means if there are two elements x and y which are mapped under this function f into another variable, that is z. Okay, for this case also we will be using extension principle by using max min principle. Okay, so this extension principle is effectively max min principle only. I will give some example to illustrate it. For some cases. So here you have to take the minimum of this mu1 and mu2 from this u1 and here u1 and u2 are in different universe, that is u1 and u2, which are mapped into a new universe, that is v, under this mapping f, a mapping function f. So here you took this minimum, you take this minimum value of this mu1 and mu2, and then finally you take the max under this mapping of f. I will give some numerical example, then these things will be understandable to some extent. Suppose I have two fuzzy sets. One is set A, another is set B. Okay. Now set A consists of 3 elements, that is 1, 2, 4, and their corresponding memberships are given 0.1 and 0.7 respectively. That means this one is representing that set element 1 is having membership value 0.2, element 2 is having membership value 1, element 4 is having membership value 0.7. Similarly, in this there is another fuzzy set, that is B, having 2 elements 1 and 2, and their members corresponding memberships are also given. Now I have to make this arithmetic product of these two fuzzy set. How can we do that? Means arithmetic product means I am basically, there are 2 universes, one is for A, another is for B. I am just transforming them to a new universe. Okay, and to do so, first I have to find out what would be the elements of the new universe. So to do so, by using this extension principle, first multiply all the elements of this universe to this element. So if we multiply all these elements of this A to this B, then what are the elements that I will be getting? I will get 1 multiplied by 1, 1. I will get 1 multiplied by 2, or 2 multiplied by 1, that is 2. I will also get 2 multiplied, I'll get 2 multiplied by 2, that is 4. Also 4 multiplied by 1, that is 4. Similarly, I will also get 4 multiplied by 2, that is 8. Okay. Now for this type of fuzzy arithmetic multiplication, first you determine what are the elements that will belong to this new universe. So I got these 4 elements, 1, 2, 4, and 8. 1 is the product of 1 and 1. 2 is the product of 1 to 2 and 2 to 1. This 1 of the set A, 2 of the set B, and 2 of the set A to 1 of the set B. Okay. Similarly, I will get 4 by taking the product of 2 of the set A with 2 of the set B, also 4 of the set A with 1 of the set B. So I will get 4. Similarly, I will get 8 by taking product of set A, 4 of the set A, element 4 of the set A to element 2 of the set B. So 8. Then what would be the corresponding membership of those elements? So that I will get by using max min principle according to the extension principle that I have shown over here. Okay. All right. Now, what is that maximum principle? So you take this mean, first you take mean and then you take max. So here we have 2 elements which is representing the multiplication of 1 and 1, that is 0.2 and 0.5. So I will take the mean of that. So this mean will be 0.2. But when we will get this 2 as a product, there are 2 multiplication that is possible. One is this 2 with this one. So their membership is 1 and 0.5. I will take mean of this 1 and 0.5, that will be equal to 0.5. Similarly, there is another multiplication possible, that is this 1 and this 2, that is 0.2 and 0.1. So I will take mean of that. So that mean will be equal to 0.2 and this mean will be equal to 0.5, and there I will have to take the max operation. So the max will be between 0.2 and 0.5, the max will be 0.5. Similarly, I'll do it the same exercise for 4 and 8. So I will get this is the fuzzy set which is representing the product of this set A and set B. Okay. Similarly, you can do any sort of arithmetic operation of any fuzzy set by using this max min principle. This operation can be addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Okay, any sort of arithmetic operation you can do. For example, I suppose I gave an example again. Suppose this is this fuzzy set. It is representing one tilt, means it is basically representing approximately 1. Why it is approximately 1? Because you can see it consists of 3 elements, that is 0, 1, and 2, and out of which one is having the membership value 1, and 0 and 2 are having max membership value 0.2 and 0.2. So it means that this fuzzy set is having the element 1 having highest membership. So that means this is similarly similar to that previously I have shown you that when my measurement was close to 100 volts, so it can be it can be said as approximately 1 or close to 1 or most likely 1. Okay. Now when we have this fuzzy set and I add another similar set with this, what I need to do are first to do the arithmetic operation of these all elements and find out what would be the arithmetic what would be the elements that will present in the new set. That means addition of this 1 and 1, approximately 1 with approximately 1. So by doing so, I get there are 5 elements which will be present. That is 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Now, what will be the membership of this 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4? This will determine by using max min principle, similar to the previous case. Okay. So you find, for example, for this 0, 0 can be obtained by adding this 0 with that 0. Both are having membership value 0.2, 0.2. So you take the minimum of that. So that is 0.2. But whenever you have 1, there are 2 ways you will get 1 in the element, one by adding this 0 with 1, another this 1 with 0. That means you have to take max min to find out this. Okay, so this is how you can do any sort of arithmetic operation in a fuzzy set. Okay, so this is what a brief presentation of this fuzzy set, and let us come to this application of this fuzzy modeling into electrical power system problems. Okay, now there are many applications of this fuzzy set theory, particularly in electrical power system, because since I belong to this electrical power system, I will talk about this, but this is applicable for any sort of domain in mechanical, in civil, or any domain. Okay, now when we'll have this fuzzy set application of the fuzzy set theory, when we have some measurement and modeling of any system, so we do measure many things which are imprecise, which are having certain sort of imprecision. Similarly, we do model many things whose parameters are uncertain or they are imprecise. So in those cases, we can apply this fuzzy set. Similarly, we can also apply this fuzzy set theory in decision making process. Okay, where we have some objectives to be fulfilled or to be optimized under certain constant. Okay, now within these objectives, there are certain elements which are not precise, which are uncertain. So I will come to that with an example. So in those cases, we can use this fuzzy based modeling. Okay. So these are the application of fuzzy based modeling in different electrical power system related problems, which include contingency analysis, failure modes, determination, linear approximation, measurement of noise, metering errors, modeling errors, overcurrent, occurrence of times of event, predicted demand, and system dynamics. Also, we have some example of the application of fuzzy set theory into decision multi-criteria decision making problem, which include this acceptable security risk analysis, customer satisfaction assessment, economic aspect, environmental objectives, and some other power quality related and so on. Okay. Now, fuzzy set theory is extensively used in various power system problem, and I think in various engineering problem in different domains. Okay, so in power system in particular, it is used in control problem, power system control problem, to express non-linearities, to represent this multi-object coordination. It is also used in power system planning to represent uncertainties, for flexible planning. It is used for power system operational analysis, and it is also used for load forecasting. Okay. Now, I'll give you an application research for application of fuzzy set theory in a research problem that I have done. That is called multi-objective planning with possibilistic load, or fuzzy. Possibilistic load means here the goal of this planning is to determine a topology of a electrical power network, power distribution network, under uncertainties of load demand. Okay, so as I I assume that you know what is load demand. Load is something that is continuously varying, and it is a kind of uncertain parameter. Okay, so throughout the day load varies. If you record the load sitting in a load dispatch center, then you will see that throughout the day load varies, and you will get if you plot this variation of load in a with respect to time, you will get a load curve. Okay, and that load curve varies, the shape and size of the load curve varies from one area to another area. Whatever load curve you will be getting in Bhopal, that will not match with the load curve with Delhi or even Guwahati, because that depends upon various parameters, including weather of that particular area, or many others, that growth of that area and many others. So load demand, it's kind of uncertain parameter. Okay, so there are many approaches for modeling this uncertainty of the load. Possibilistic or probabilistic approach is one of them, but here probabilistic or stochastic approach is one of them. Here I use possibilistic approach, which is nothing but fuzzy set theory based approach. Okay, and
national channel ആണെങ്കിൽ 30 അങ്ങനെ എന്തോ കൊടുക്കുക, അങ്ങനെ എന്തോ പറഞ്ഞു.
Please, the participants, please switch off your mic. Some participant, please kindly switch off your mic.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Now I used to illustrate this problem, I used three test networks, which are of 21 node system, 54 node system, and 100 node system. Each node represent one particular area or bus beyond which you have this distribution transformer, and these are connected directly to the different types of load. Load can be of different types, residential or domestic, commercial, industrial, agricultural, and so on. Okay, now in all the system, we assume that substation is located at node 1, and there are some differences in different system. 21 node system is there is an existing network, and it needs expansion. Okay, and other networks do not have any initial infrastructure, so you are supposed to build a new network Okay, and this design of this network is our prime goal of this research problem or optimization problem. Okay, so in case of 21 node system, if you look at this figure, we have some partial network exist. These all black dots represents one particular node, where beyond which you have different customers connected. Okay, so the customers, they use the electricity according to their own need, and accordingly their load will vary throughout the day, throughout the month, throughout the year. Okay, similarly, now here the objective of this problem is that we have a partial network. Here we have substation, and this line is representing the distribution line, that is which is connecting node 1 to node 2. This line is connecting node 2 to node 3, and so on. Okay, now the goal of this engineering problem is to optimally connect all these new loading point to this particular network. Okay, suppose whenever a new city is new city or new area has developed, so it has some only few loading points, only few demand points. Then new buildings are coming in, new commercial complex are set up, new offices are set up. So afterwards various other loading points are established, and here our goal as a power system engineer is to supply these new areas economically, because economy is one of the major issues in any sort of engineering problem. You can design something, if it is not economical, nobody will purchase it. So suppose I design a electric vehicle, and if it is not economically feasible, nobody will purchase it. Similarly here, as a power system design engineer, you have to design this network so that you can economically connect all these node points. Okay, so that is what our optimization problem. Now there are these are the load demand information of different nodes. So all these nodes would not have this identical load demand, so we'll be having different load demands in different nodes. Those informations are given here. And also we use different types of conductors to construct a line. So these conductors are given in this table. Okay, now this is what this 100 node system. Here we do not have any existing network. All nodes are new, and we have to construct a network, or we have to construct a brand new network. So that is why this is not a kind of expansion planning. That is rather it is a kind of planning of a brand new network. Okay. Now similarly, this is a 54 bus system. Here also it is not a planning of a it is not an expansion plan. Rather there is no pre-existing infrastructure. We have to locate a substation, and we have to connect all these load points to this substation economically. Okay, so these are the conductor sizes used for this 54 and 100 node system. Okay, now as I said here, this is a kind of optimization. Suppose I model this problem into a function f with some variable x. X is a vector of number of variables. Then all these variables we need to determine by maximizing or minimizing the value of f. Okay, now when we apart from this variable, there are certain things which are known to us, but they are uncertain, and these are load demand. Okay, so here in this figure, approximate means most probable load demands are given. If you look at this column E and F, the active and reactive power load demands of different nodes are given. These are approximate load demand. As I said, load demand you cannot accurately or precisely predict. You cannot precisely calculate. So you can predict it, but it depends based upon your past experience. but you cannot precisely say that, okay, at 2 o'clock afternoon today, the load demand of Bhopal will be precisely 5.725 megawatt. No, nobody can do so. Okay, so you can predict that since it is a winter, end of the winter, so approximately the load demand will be nearly 5 megawatt or so. So whenever we can do so, then means we have some imprecision. So that is basically modeled here by using fuzzy set theory. So here I did, I model this load demand by using a fuzzy triangular number. Okay, by using a triangular membership value of this fuzzy, where this L2 is representing this most probable load, whatever I am predicting that, okay, load demand at 2 o'clock of this Guwahati would be nearly 5 megawatt. Okay, so that is would be the most probable load demand, but there will be some sort of plus minus some values of this most probable load demand, which will have some partial belongingness. Okay, so L1 and L3 are basically representing, L1 to L3 is basically representing the boundary, and L2 is basically the most probable value of the load demand. Okay, so this is how I have fuzzified this load demand for that particular problem. And I did some usual planning process. Then finally, whatever value we are getting this fuzzy objective function, because whenever this load demand is one of the parameter of this objective function, then objective function will be also fuzzy. Then that fuzzy objective function need to be again defuzzified, need to be defuzzified to a scalar or classical set value. So, okay, so here I use a alpha cat or lambda cat lambda removal technique. It is not similar to alpha cut or lambda cut. This is called alpha removal or lambda removal techniques. By using so, I can also find a crisp value or a scalar value correspond from a particular fuzzy set. So this is what the expression by using which I can find out what should be the value of scalar value of the alpha cut of this fuzzy objective function. And alpha, the choice of alpha is it's a planar choice, and I can decide any value. But again, if you take alpha very less value, then approximately you are taking the whole boundary of the set. And if you take alpha very high value, that means you are approximately taking the only close to the most probable value. So in one case you will be most pessimistic, in another case you will be most optimistic. Okay, so higher value of alpha gives you more optimism that whatever most probable value you have chosen, it is almost correct. And reducing the value of alpha, you are a bit pessimistic that you are giving more weightage to the uncertainty of this load demand. Okay, so depending upon how this you can choose the value of alpha. Now here we have two objective functions. One is called fuzzy total cost and another is risk factor. Okay, so this risk factor consists of the risk of violation of different constraint of this problem, and also the part of it will be the reliability factor. The CLLI is basically a reliability indicator that I have chosen. Now in the this first objective function, which is total cost, it consists of the total cost of this implementation of this design of that particular network, which includes cost of construction of new lines, cost of construction of substation, and cost of the capacity addition of the substation. Also the operational cost, like cost of the energy loss of that particular network. Okay, now when we have two objectives which are simultaneously to be optimized, here our goal would be simultaneously we will be minimizing this fuzzy removal cost and the risk factor. Both we would like to minimize. Now, when we have this sort of minimization, having multiple objectives, there are many approaches to handle this multiple objectives, which include weight aggregation approach. That means you can aggregate both the objectives into different weight, and let us formulate a single, let us convert this to a single objective and then optimize. Okay. Also, there exists a epsilon constant method, lexicographic ordering approach. But here in this particular problem, I used Pareto dominance approach, or rather Pareto based multi-objective optimization. And I took a meta heuristic algorithm, that is particle sum optimization, to solve this particular optimization problem. So since it is also need to be devised in such a way that it can solve this multi-objective optimization problem. So it is there is an its variance, multi-objective particle sum optimization, that is MOPSO, that I used. Now, what is Pareto dominance principle? Let me give you a brief idea about this. In Pareto dominance, when we have multiple objectives which conflict with each other, conflict means here you cannot imagine that you'll minimize the cost without sacrificing some aspect. For example, if I want to go to from Guwahati to Bhopal, I cannot have any option which will be cost effective as well as more comfortable. Okay, there might be various ways that I can go from Guwahati to Bhopal by car, by train, by flight, many other, by walking, or by many other options are there. Now, out of which can you find one option which would be economical as well as comfortable? No, because if I use air, that will be more comfortable journey, but it will not be an economical option. It will be most expensive option. So similarly, many similarly here, when we have multiple objective function which conflict with each other, that means here you can look, if you look at, we have two objectives, one is cost and risk factor. If you minimize the cost, risk factor will increase, and vice versa. Okay, or if you minimize the cost, reliability will be improved. Reliability will be if you minimize the cost, reliability will deteriorate, and vice versa. So when we have that kind of conflictness, we use Pareto dominance principle. So here this is the condition of domination from one solution to another solution. That means if a solution dominate another solution, then if it is better in terms of all the objectives, but it will strictly better at least in one objective. Here it is used for minimization problems, so less than is basically can be called as a better. Okay. Now finally, using this approach, we arrive at a number of solutions which are non-dominated. Okay. Now non-dominated means these solutions do not dominate each other. Okay, so here this solution, for example, is based in terms of objective function 1 if you want to minimize both the objectives simultaneously, but it is worst in terms of objective function 2. Similarly, extremely this solution is the best solution in view of objective function 2 because you want to minimize the objective function, but it is the worst solution in case of objective function 1. So similarly, you will get many points which are having some sort of values of this objective function 1 and 2. Okay, so there are many Pareto based multi-objective particle sum optimization. So this will give you a glimpse of idea that what are the area of means in which this research is going on in Pareto-based multi-objective particle column optimization. But if you look at this literature, you will see there are two approaches which are mostly used. One is called non-dominated sorted evolutionary algorithm by Professor Kalyan Mahideb. Another is called strength Pareto evolutionary algorithm, that is called SPA2. This is proposed by some researcher in ETH Zurich. Okay, and you will get many papers. In fact, this NSGA2, it is very well known and it is cited 1,000 times. Okay, several thousands times. Similarly, SPA2 also several thousand times. Okay, so here I basically use the concept of SPA2. Okay, and I use, as I said, a new MOPSO variant which was proposed by us only, that is heuristic based selection of this MOPSO. And in order to solve this this particular problem, there are many building blocks. One of the building block is load flow approach. We use interval arithmetic based load flow. Okay, which is suitable for similar kind of fuzzy based analysis. And also used a concept of fuzzy Pareto dominance, which is having which is a concept to rank the solution. Okay, now what is fuzzy Pareto dominance? In fuzzy Pareto dominance, a solution, there are two matrices. There are two metrics proposed. One is for active domination, another is for passive domination. Okay, so active domination means how much one solution is dominating to other. Okay, and passive domination means how much one solution is get dominated by others. Okay, so one is giving that most dominating solution, another is giving less dominated solution by the most dominating solution. Okay, so if I repeat it again, one concept is giving that active domination is giving that how much one solution is dominating other. Okay, and passive domination is giving how much one solution is getting dominated by the dominating solution. Okay, so by ranking by using active domination, you can get most dominating solution, but by using passive dominance, you will get the solution which is least dominated by most dominating solutions. Okay, so this will give some degree of domination, and by using which I use some case studies by using different test system. First three cases for assuming these loads are of deterministic, and case D we consider these loads, we model this load fuzzy by using fuzzy set theory, and I compare the performance of this case D, which is our possibilistic approach or fuzzy set theory based approach, with deterministic loads. And these are the Pareto approximation font. Pareto fonts means these are the plots of this non-dominated solutions, those solutions which do not dominate, do not get dominated by each other. Okay, so looking at those solutions, you cannot interpret anything. So these are the some solutions, network topology, where which I have shown over here, which represent this network topology in different system. This is for 21 node bus system, this is for 54 node system, this is for 100 node system. But again, looking at this topology also, you cannot predict anything. In fact, all these solutions are represent different network topology, different aspects. Okay, now to understand this advantage or the impact of this fuzzy based modeling, what I did, we did some case study again. So to do so, what we do, we use two different tests. One is called steady load variation test, another is called random load fluctuations test. In steady load variation test means whatever network I am getting by using different approaches, either in fuzzy based approach or classical approach, those networks for those networks, what I did, I increased the load of different nodes steadily one time, another is by randomly. Okay, and I try to test their ability to withstand this load variation or load fluctuations. Okay, now this will give you some idea that what is the advantage of this possibilistic load. What we get in case of case D, you can see these networks are experiencing less violation in the voltage if you go for voltage as well as branch current capacity. Okay, if you go for steady load variation test, that means whatever networks I am getting by using this fuzzy based approach, they can withstand more load without experiencing overcurrent in any sort of lines. So this is what the result interpret. Okay, similarly they can also experience this less constant violation, less voltage violation. So here you can see all the networks, if you go for random load fluctuation test, will experience some sort of violation in voltage and this branch current capacity, branch current flow or line current flow. But here in case D, we didn't experience any sort of that kind of constant violation. Okay, so this is what one of the advantages. In fact, if you look at the Pareto front, even though these networks are not distinguishably different in terms of this cost and this risk factor, but they are eventually having the ability of withstanding higher value of load fluctuation without violating its branch flow or this voltage constant. Okay, also we compare this result with different techniques. We got this fuzzy Pareto dominance technique. It is giving better, in multi-objective optimization, two indices are used, one for measuring this, how much one solution is going towards the optimal solution, another is to how much diversified solutions we are getting. So in terms of that, you can see that fuzzy Pareto dominance based this approach is having better performance in terms of this, particularly in parts of keeping diversified solutions with less runtime complexity. So this is what the big notation through which you can compute the runtime complexity. Okay, so as such we came to the end of this presentation. So here in a summary, what we thought that particular, so initially we learned about what is fuzzy set, how can you use different operations in a fuzzy set, and then I explained what the application of fuzzy set theory in your typical power distribution system planning problem. And here we used Pareto based multi-objective optimization using particle sum optimization. We used many things like we used Pareto, passive Pareto dominance for clustering method, and we use many things in that. But most essence of the fact is that by considering this, by modeling this load uncertainty, ultimately the networks that we are designing, that networks we are getting as an outcome of the optimization problem are capable of withstanding overload, random load fluctuation, and better utilization of the capacity of the network. Okay, so this is what the outcome of this fuzzy based uncertainty model. Okay, now for this particular work, you can go through in detail in these two papers, particularly in the first paper, Fuzzy Set and Systems, Elsevier. It is very renowned journal, and also in Expert System with Application. These are quite old, published in 7 years back, but you can go through for more details. And these are for other references that I for this basics of power distribution system planning problem, you can go through. And finally, thank you very much. And I would like to get your questions now.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was a very nice session. And I would now request the participants, if you are having any doubts, kindly ask, sir. Kindly you can unmute yourself and ask questions to sir, if at all you have any doubt.
Good afternoon, sir. Myself,
Yeah.
Srinivasan, from
Yeah.
Hindustan Institute of Technology and Science. Sir, I have a basic question on when you are multiplying the two fuzzy sets A and B. Can you please explain more on that? Is finding min and max? Little more explanation, if
So
possible.
means you are asking this multiplication of two fuzzy sets, no?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay.
When you take the min and maximums, what is the condition to follow? Yes, sir.
No, I do not have any example to show you, but this multiplication operation eventually you can do in similar way. That is, yeah. This is the example, no? Yeah, I have example. Yeah. So suppose this is one fuzzy set, that is set A, and this is another fuzzy set, that is set B. Okay. Now set A consists of these three elements, 1, 2, and 4. As three elements, 1, 2, and 4. And these are basically representing their corresponding members, 0.2, 1, and 0.7 respectively. And set B is having two elements, 1 and 2. And these two are corresponding membership values. Okay. Now, when we will multiply this set with this set, first you have to find out what are the elements after multiplication that will be present in that particular new fuzzy set, because it is a kind of also mapping of two sets into a new set. Okay. Now, to do so, first find out there are three elements here in the set A, and there are two elements in the set B. You multiply each element of set A with each element of set B. That is similar to a arithmetic multiplication. So we multiply 1 with 1, we will get 1. So you multiply 1 with 2, you will get 2. Similarly, if you multiply 2 with 1, you will get again 2. Similarly, you multiply 2 with 2, you will get 4. Also 4 with 1, you will get 4. Okay. Now you multiply 4 with 2, you will get 8. So if you multiply 1, 2, 4 with 1 and 2, you will get these 4 elements exist. One is 1, one is 2, another is 4, another is 8. Now you find out what would be the corresponding membership of these 4 elements in the new fuzzy set. To do so, you use that fuzzy extension principle, that is max min principle. Okay. So find out what would be the membership of 1. Now to do so, you see that how this 1 has come. One has come due to the multiplication of one of this fuzzy set A and one of this fuzzy set B. Now membership of this one of fuzzy set A was 0.2 and membership of one of this fuzzy set B was 0.5. You take mean value of these two. So that is will be equal to 0.2. Okay. Now when we multiply 2 with 1 or 1 with 2, similarly you take that, for example, this in this new fuzzy set 2 will come if you multiply this element 2 with of A with element 1 of B, or the element 1 of A with element 2 of B. Now, in order to find out the membership of these two, what you need to do? First, you need to multiply 1 with these 2. So what we will get? You will get 2 membership, that is 0.2 and 1. You take the mean of these two, 0.2 and 1, mean will be 0.2. Similarly, also you will get 2 by multiplying this 2 of this set A and 1 of this set B. So you take 2, you will get 2 membership, one is 1 and 0.5. So you will get mean of these two, we will get 0.5. So here you will get 0.5, here you will get 0.2. You will take the max of these two. So that's the max will be 0.5. Similarly, you do for element 4 and element 8. Is it understandable?
Say if you have a function, say for example, in this case, for the membership, meaning the 1 and 8, you have only taken the min value. And when you have two or more options, like in this case, 2 multiplied by 1 or 1 multiplied by 2, in that case, you have to take max of the min of the two values.
Right.
Isn't it so, sir?
Right, absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. Any other question anybody's having? I don't think so, sir. Anybody's having any other question? It was a really very nice session, sir. Katie, sir, would you like to say something?
Thank you very much, sir. Very much valuable and informative lecture. Thank you very much, sir. Thanks again.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Next, in the next session, now all of us we are going